Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Traces of Hubris. This is a game designed by Tetsuya Nakamura and is published by VUCA Simulations. Well, recently on the channel we took a look at Traces of War, which was after the Battle of Kursk. Now we're going with Fall Blau with Traces of Hubris. This is a new release, so if you haven't gotten your order in, you can get over to the VUCA website and place your order and get a copy now before it goes out of stock, because this one and Traces of War are both fantastic games, and now that they're both available, I think you're going to see them both flying off the shelf, or more properly, out of the warehouse. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. Traces of Hubris is a two-player game that simulates the German Case Blue Fall Blau summer offensive in southern Russia during the second half of 1942. The goal was to cut off the Volga at Stalingrad and to capture the Caucasus oil fields. Game contents: we get two 23 by 32-inch maps, 300 counters, two sets of player aids, one solitaire track sheet, one rulebook, and one six-sided die. Unit scale is division and core. Time scale is 1 turn equals 2 weeks or a month. Map scale about 22.5 kilometers per hex. And the playing time is from 3 to 6 hours, and it is for 1 or 2 players on the right-hand side. We see an example of the map and the counters that come with the game. It is rated as 4 complexity, and solitaire suitability is 9. This is definitely very high solitaire suitability because it is a chit pull game, and it's a fantastic fun one at that. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. All right, we get our rule book, our D6, and it's a wood one. Our solitaire track, counter sheets, player aids, of course, standard chipboard from VUCA, and our maps. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. It is a beautifully done map, just like Traces of War was. This is using a slightly different color palette, but has that same vibe, that same feel, and beautifully done, just like Traces of War. And again, very easy to read when it comes to the terrain features, things like that on the map. You've got your major rivers, minor rivers out there, like right here, your major river here. You've got rail lines, road lines, mountains, rough, clear, swamp areas. Everything is very easy to read. You've also got major towns like Rostov-on-Don, Stalino. These are also going to be axis target hexes. That's why they're surrounded by that orange hex. On the left-hand side, we have the turn track, VP and reinforcement order. On the right-hand side, we have the Axis reinforcements table, German withdrawal table, Luftwaffe table, combat results table, and the Soviet reinforcements table. Then you have the Axis force pool along the bottom. You've got your Luftwaffe box available and used, Axis command chit pool executed and inactive, the active chit, and then you've got your Axis rail transfer box on the bottom left-hand side along with the in transfer. The same information is on the other side for the Russians, and that's why you've got that solitaire tracker that we'll see here when we look at the player aids. Just like we saw in Traces of War, that's when you're going to play solitaire. You can track everything right off of that one sheet. But overall, really beautiful map. It's coded just like it was with Traces of War. Once again, VUCA sets a new bar for production quality. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. You get 2, Player Aid A and Player Aid B. These are 2-sided, and there are 1 for each player. Start off with the Turn 1 special rule, and then you have information on stacking. You have the sequence of play and all the steps on the sequence of play on the front of the first player aid. On the back, we get the combat results table, Soviet reinforcements table, German withdrawal table, Luftwaffe table, Axis reinforcements table, and the terrain effects chart on the right-hand side, listing out a graphical representation of each piece of terrain, the movement cost, and then the combat effects, if any, as well as notes for the different terrain types in the game. On Player Aid B, we have the steps for reinforcements, Luftwaffe air support, movement, ZOC effects on movement, off-map combat steps, and all of the combat steps. On the back, we have steps for Soviet fortifications, combat results table at the bottom left, Operation Blucher, victory explanation, as well as headquarters and zone of control information at the bottom right. And the final player aid is the solo tracker, which we talked about when we looked at the map. This is going to give you all the holding boxes and tracks you'll need to play both sides when playing the game Solitaire. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game, and these are pre-rounded, beautifully done by VUCA as always. One thing I noticed right away looking at it on the map is, wow, these Soviet units really are going to blend into this terrain quite a bit. If you're not paying attention, you can easily overlook something. As I said, we start off on the first sheet with Soviet units and some administrative counters at the bottom. On the next sheet, we have the remainder of the Soviet forces as well as the German forces. Then on the third sheet, we finish out the German forces, and then we have the armor silhouette counters that you can use. Instead of the standard NATO symbol, you can use these, which is what I prefer to use because I love seeing tanks on a map. And then the remainder of the sheet are the administrative counters for use in the game. And lastly, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 19-page full-color rulebook. Inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents listing out all the different rule sections and their associated page numbers, abbreviations at the bottom. Then we get to introduction, game components, your map, your counters, how to read all of those, headquarters types, command sheets, player aid sheets, your markers. And we have the preparation for play on page 6. Then we start off with the sequence of play on page 7. So first 6 pages or so are just all support information, and then you get ready to start jumping into play on page 7. You have your actions, your chits, your reinforcement chit for the Soviets and Axis, Stavka chit, OKH chit, stacking, zones of control, Luftwaffe air support, supply, movement, strategic movement, supply line example illustrated for you here, ZOC effects on movement example, and strategic movement example. Then we get into combat, your combat procedure, combat ratio determination, the results, and then retreat, advance after combat. Then we get into reinforcements for both the Soviets and the Axis. Then we have combat example illustrated for you on page 13. Then we have some special rules for turn 1, headquarters special rules, and fortifications. Then we have Operation Blucher, which is the 11th Army. Then we get into victory conditions, and then optional rules on page 15 for mobile warfare, Axis miners enmity, and headquarters voluntary relocation, as well as the Luftwaffe attacks on cities. And then we get to developers notes. So start off on page 7, you get to page 15, about 8 pages of rules. Just like with Trace of War, it's going to be real easy to get through this rule book and to get this thing on the table. Strategy and player notes for Solitaire as well as Opposed. Then you have historical notes. And then we are at the back of the rule book. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Traces of Hubris. This is a game designed by Tetsuya Nakamura and is published by VUCA Simulations. Well, just like we saw with Traces of War, this is a really simple system to jump into, and you've got this huge playing area, which is why I say these games have almost a mini monster type of feel, because you really are just racing across a vast area. So it's going to be a lot of fun to play. You don't have a lot of counters, so it's not a true monster, but it has a kind of a mini monster feel to it, just based on the size of the map and how there's constant maneuver in this game, and that's a lot of fun. Best part about this system, and the best part about playing this Solitaire, is it is a chit pull system. So you never know what's going to happen, and each game is going to definitely be different because of that. And that's why if you are wanting to play a game that is a simulation of something like this, Fall Blau, then this is not going to be the game that you're going to necessarily want to play, because you're going to get historical results because of the chit pull. Not always, but a lot of times you will. Other times it'll follow history. But the main thing you're going to get is a different experience each time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. If you're looking for something that sticks to the historicity, that's something you got to keep in mind with this game. You're going to get, like I said, historical results. But if you're looking for fun, definitely grab this and Trace of War, because they're both really, really fun games. And they play pretty quick. You can play this in like 3 to 6 hours. And when you say, oh, that's 6 hours, it's a lot of time. Now, when you consider the amount of area that you're covering, that's pretty quick. Even Solitaire, you can move faster or slower depending on what your time schedule is. You can play a little bit each night, or you can sit down and jam it out all in one day. But definitely get both games, Traces of War and Traces of Hubris. Both of them are a lot of fun. And Traces of Hubris is now available from VUCA. So go over there and order it before it empties out of the warehouse, which I wouldn't be shocked to see happen, because it's a great little system. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you'd be curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.